To that part of town, the old district had been left to rot, its cracked sidewalks and boarded-up homes slowly sinking into the soil. Yet something drew me back, a vague pull, like a half-forgotten dream that refused to release me. Among the ruins stood the school, its broken windows like hollow eyes, staring across the field of weeds. I had walked past it 100 times as a child, always wondering why no one ever tried to repair it after the fire. The building loomed against the dusk, its roof sagging, its walls scrawled with graffiti. I remember hesitating at the entrance, my breath fogging in the cool air, as if some invisible threshold kept me at bay. But the silence of the street pressed on me, and curiosity finally won. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first: damp wood, mildew, and something faintly metallic, like rust or old blood. Dust coated the air, swirling through the pale shafts of light that pierced the broken ceiling. My footsteps echoed across the hall, bouncing back unnaturally, as though the building itself was mocking me. I passed a row of lockers, their doors hanging crookedly. Some still bore stickers and carved initials, ghosts of children long grown. My hand brushed against one handle, and to my surprise, it clicked open. Inside lay nothing but a decayed book, its pages stuck together in a wet lump. I closed it quickly, heart thudding, and moved on. The classrooms were skeletal remains of what once held order and noise. Desks lay overturned, blackboards cracked and flaking. In one room, I found a collection of small chairs arranged in a circle, as if someone had been holding class long after the building had been abandoned. I froze, staring at them, an uncomfortable chill running down my spine. The dust was thick everywhere, but those chairs were oddly clean, as if touched recently. I almost turned back then, but something deeper kept me moving, a faint sound that teased my ear. At first, I thought it was the wind, but as I walked deeper, it grew clearer. High, thin notes, like laughter, children's laughter. My chest tightened. The sound came from below, beneath the cracked floorboards. I followed it down the corridor until I reached a door I didn't remember existing. The wood was swollen with dampness, the handle corroded. But when I pulled, it gave way with a groan. Stale, cold air rushed out, carrying with it the faintest echo of giggles. A staircase descended into darkness. The concrete steps were broken in places, and I had to steady myself on the damp wall as I moved downward. My phone light barely cut through the gloom, but enough to reveal the rough edges of stone and brick. The deeper I went, the colder it became. The laughter came and went, like ripples of sound traveling just ahead of me. Sometimes I thought I heard whispers mixed in, hushed voices that silenced themselves whenever I stopped. My breath grew ragged, my body urging me to retreat, but I forced myself on. At the bottom, I found the basement. The ceiling was low, the walls dripping with condensation. Strange markings lined the stone, carved deep and uneven. Broken toys lay scattered across the floor, wooden blocks, headless dolls, a small rusted tricycle. My light trembled across them, and I realized with a sudden shiver that they looked as if they had been placed there deliberately, each toy facing the same direction, toward the center of the room. And in that center was a door, small, iron, half buried in the earth. The laughter rose again, bright and chilling, seeping out through the cracks around it. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to turn back, but instead, I took a step closer.
Door, my phone trembling in my hand, the weak circle of light wavering across the rusted surface. The door was small, far too small for an adult to comfortably pass through. It reminded me of a crawl space, or perhaps a hatch, designed for something other than people. The hinges were thick, though corroded with age, and the handle seemed almost fused to the metal. Yet despite its decayed appearance, the laughter spilling through its edges was sharp, clear, alive. I crouched, my ear pressed against the cold iron. The sound inside was unmistakable. Children giggling, running, shouting as though at recess. My chest tightened with a mix of fear and disbelief. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't an echo. It was real, happening just beyond the barrier. For a long moment I considered leaving, telling myself this was none of my business. But the weight of curiosity bore down on me like a hand pressing between my shoulders. With a shaky grip, I pulled at the handle. At first it resisted, groaning, then gave way with a sudden screech that echoed through the basement like a scream. The door swung open onto a tunnel. The air inside was thick with dampness, yet it carried an undertone of something sweet, almost cloying, like rotting fruit. The walls were narrower than the basement, carved roughly into the stone. My light bounced across them, catching scratches, marks like tiny fingernails dragged again and again. I swallowed hard and stepped through. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, sloping downward. My footsteps echoed strangely, overlapping themselves in ways that didn't make sense, as if others were following me just a step behind. At times I thought I saw movement in the edges of the light, a fleeting shadow, the twitch of something small darting away. I told myself it was just my nerves. After what felt like minutes, I came to another room. This one was wider, circular, with a low ceiling and a floor coated in a thick layer of dust. And yet scattered across that dust I saw footprints. Small ones. Bare feet, dozens of them, crisscrossing, circling, as if children had been playing here not long ago. The laughter rang again, loud and piercing, bouncing around the chamber. I spun, my light whipping across the walls. Nothing. The sound had no source, no bodies to carry it. It was everywhere, yet nowhere. In the corner of the room sat a row of desks. Real school desks, their wood chipped and splintered, but arranged neatly in lines as though awaiting a class. Each desk held an object, a toy, a shoe, a fragment of clothing. I stepped closer and a chill crawled over my skin. The items were old, faded by time but unmistakably personal. A tiny dress, a teddy bear with a missing eye, a pair of cracked glasses. My mouth dried. It was as if these desks were memorials, shrines to children who had once been here and never left. I heard it then, a sharp scrape behind me. I spun around, light trembling, but there was only the tunnel yawning back into darkness. I tried to tell myself it was falling stone or shifting air, but deep down I knew better. The laughter grew softer now, almost like it was receding, pulling me further in. My feet moved before my mind could stop them. I passed the desks, crossed the room, and found another passage leading even deeper. This one was different. The walls were lined with faded murals, painted directly onto the stone. Crude images of children holding hands, smiling faces, a sun with jagged rays. The colors were smeared and warped. The smiles stretched unnaturally wide. My light made them flicker, and in that moment, I could swear the painted eyes followed me. I moved faster, pulse hammering in my ears. The laughter was close again, louder, overlapping voices now, dozens of them filling the air like a swarm of insects. The tunnel opened into a larger hall, and I stopped dead in my tracks. The room stretched high above me, far larger than should have been possible beneath the school. Rows of broken chairs were set like an audience, all facing a raised platform at the far end. And on that platform was a chalkboard. Scrawled across it in jagged, chalk-white letters was a single phrase: "Class is in session." The children's laughter exploded around me, deafening, and for the first time I heard words woven into it. Whispered words. My name. Whispered among the laughter, froze me in place. I stood there, rooted to the cracked concrete floor, while the giggles rose and fell like a cruel chorus. I shined my light across the hall, desperate to find the source, but the beam only caught fragments. The warped faces of painted children on the walls, the glint of broken glass, the shadows of empty chairs leaning at odd angles. Then, movement. At first, I thought it was just dust stirred by my steps, but no, shapes began to form in the dimness, silhouettes no taller than my waist. They darted between chairs, weaving in and out of the rows, their laughter sharper now, closer. My breath hitched. I raised the light and caught one in its glow. A child, or what was left of one. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight across tiny bones. The eyes were pools of black, wide and unblinking, yet somehow filled with glee. Its mouth split into a grin too large for its face, teeth small and jagged like broken porcelain. As soon as the light touched it, it shrieked, not in pain, but in delight, before vanishing into the darkness. The others followed, appearing just long enough for me to glimpse flashes of twisted faces, twitching limbs, clothes that hung in tatters as though rotting with time. There were dozens of them now, their feet slapping against the ground, circling me. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, until my spine hit something solid, the chalkboard. The words, "Class is in session," loomed behind me, chalk dust drifting down as if the letters had just been written. My phone light flickered. Then the voices spoke again, not laughter this time, but a chant, layered and overlapping. Sit, 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 sit. The rows of chairs creaked. Some of them slid across the floor on their own, scraping closer until they formed a neat row before me. One small desk dragged itself forward, stopping just inches from my knees. I shook my head violently. "No," I whispered, though my voice broke in the middle of the word. The children giggled again, higher, louder, filling every inch of the air. I could see them more clearly now, their faces pressing in from the edges of the light. One leaned close enough that I could feel the icy breath brush my cheek, though when I swung the light, the space was empty. The desk rattled. A piece of chalk rolled onto its surface, though the chalkboard was across the room. My trembling hand reached out against my will, fingers brushing the chalk. The children fell silent. And then, as if on cue, a voice, unlike the others, rose above the hush. Not a child's voice, deeper, heavier, filled with authority. "Begin the lesson." The temperature in the room plummeted. My breath fogged before me. Shadows lengthened across the walls, pooling like ink at the edges of the chamber. The children scattered to the chairs, each climbing into a seat, their black eyes fixed on me. They were waiting. I stood frozen, the chalk in my hand, the silence pressing down so heavily I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. Something had me anchored to the spot. My phone light flickered again, and for an instant, I saw it. At the back of the hall, beyond the rows of children, a figure stood, tall,
towering, draped in darkness. Its face was obscured, but I could feel its gaze, heavy and merciless, pinning me in place. And then it spoke again. Right.
In my hand. My fingers clutched it so tightly I thought it might snap, but something stronger than fear forced my arm upward. The board loomed in front of me, dark and endless, the faint outline of the earlier words still visible. My wrist trembled as the first line scrawled itself across the surface, my own hand moving without command. At first, it was nonsense. Jagged scratches, crooked letters that blurred together. But slowly, they formed words, names. Anna, Mikola, Irina, Petro, Sophia. One after another, the chalk scratched across the black surface, the names multiplying, filling the space. Dozens of them, then hundreds. My breath caught as I realized these weren't random. Each name was precise, clear, deliberate. The laughter behind me softened, turning into something else. A hum, almost like a lullaby, sung by many small voices at once. I felt the children watching me, but I didn't dare turn. My arm ached, yet it didn't stop moving. More names appeared, faster now, until the entire board was white with them, layers upon layers of children I had never met. And then the writing changed. The chalk dragged heavier, forming sentences that twisted my stomach as I read them aloud under my breath. They were locked away. They were left in the dark. No one came for us. The humming behind me broke into soft whimpers. I could hear the children shifting in their seats, small hands gripping the edges of their desks. The chant of "sit, sit, sit" was gone now, replaced by sighs and sniffles. The sound of sorrow breaking through the veil of play. More words formed, violent strokes that gouged the board. The fire was not the beginning. The basement was our classroom. We never left. My throat went dry. My body wanted to collapse, but still I wrote. Tears blurred my vision, though I didn't know if they were mine or some echo of the children's grief pressing through me. The story unfolded in fragmented phrases. A lesson with no end. Doors locked from above. Teacher watching. Laughter turned to crying. We called for help. No one came. My knees gave way, and I nearly dropped the chalk. The sobs in the room grew louder, dozens of voices trembling in unison. I forced myself to look over my shoulder just once. The children sat in their desks, but their grins were gone. Their dark eyes shimmered, wet with endless tears. They weren't mocking me anymore. They were pleading. Small arms reached out, fingers curling in the air like they longed to be held. And then I saw him again. The tall figure at the back of the room, the one who had commanded me to write. His shadow stretched impossibly long, his face still hidden, but this time I felt the weight of his presence pressing into my chest. The air warped around him, and I knew this was no teacher. This was something older, something that fed on the cycle of lessons, the eternal class session that had never ended. My hand moved one last time across the board, though I wanted to scream and stop it. The final words etched themselves with brutal clarity. We laugh because he makes us. We laugh so we do not scream. The chalk snapped in my grip, falling to the floor. The silence that followed was unbearable. And then, all at once, the children began to laugh again.
not in joy, not in cruelty, but in sheer despair. An endless chorus of broken souls echoing off the stone walls, filling every corner of the ruined school's heart.
Pressing against my skull until it felt like my head would split, I stumbled back from the chalkboard, desperate to cover my ears. But the sound was inside me now, rattling in my chest, vibrating in my teeth. The children rose from their desks in unison. Their small bodies jerked stiffly, their black eyes glistening, their wet cheeks streaked with tears that never dried. Their mouths opened wide, and the laughter poured out like a single, endless scream of mirth. But their faces betrayed the truth. It was agony disguised as play. "Stop!" I cried, my voice breaking. But the room only grew louder. From the far end of the hall, the tall figure stepped forward at last. His movements were slow, deliberate, each step echoing with the weight of stone. As he entered the circle of my trembling light, I saw him clearly. He wore the tattered remains of a teacher's suit, fabric blackened and charred at the edges. His face was wrong, too long, stretched taut like melted wax, with hollow sockets where eyes should have been. And yet, though empty, those sockets saw me. His mouth split into a perfect line. No lips, just a seam that cracked open from ear to ear. "Class," he whispered, his voice like the dragging of nails across slate. "Dismissed." The children shrieked, laughter snapping into screams. Their bodies jerked violently, as though yanked by invisible strings, and then they rushed at me. Dozens of small, cold hands clawed at my arms, my face, my throat. I swung wildly, trying to break free, but they swarmed me like a tide, their nails digging into my skin. I fell back against the board. My light flickered once, twice, then died, plunging the chamber into pure black. Yet I could still see them. Every pale face, every glistening tooth burned into my vision as though glowing from within. The teacher loomed closer, his towering shadow bending over me. His voice filled my mind, smothering every thought. "You are one of us now." My scream tore from my throat, but it was drowned in their laughter. My body convulsed, my vision blurred, and for one fleeting moment, I thought I felt myself dissolve, flesh unraveling, voice splitting into a dozen echoes. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was the chalkboard. The name scrawled there writhed and shifted, and at the very bottom, a new name carved itself in trembling strokes. Mine. Now, when the wind howls through the ruins of that school, people say they hear children laughing deep underground. They're wrong. It's not the children. It's me.